The space station hung in the middle of the stars like a giant silver ring. Ships of many shapes came and went, each carrying people from different worlds. Some ships were tall like towers, others wide like wings, and some looked like flying stones with glowing lights. It was the place where humans and aliens met for trade, talks, and sometimes peace. On this day, the station was alive with more voices than usual. An important visitor was coming. The royal ship of the Chiron Kingdom was about to arrive. The Chiron were tall and graceful, their skins soft with a faint shine. They ruled a wide star empire known for its wisdom and art. Leading the visit was Princess Leora, the youngest daughter of the royal house. She was known as gentle, yet strong, curious, yet careful. Many had never seen her travel so far from her homeworld. So her arrival was already the talk of the station. Inside one of the human halls, a young officer named Aaron stood waiting. He wore the dark blue uniform of the human fleet, neat and simple, with only a silver badge that showed his rank. He had been chosen as one of the guides for the alien guests. To him, it was only duty. He did not think about glory or honor. He only thought of doing his work properly. Aaron looked at the time screen as the moment came closer. Around him, other humans whispered nervously. Some feared making mistakes in front of the aliens. Others were simply curious. After all, the Chiron rarely walked among humans. They often kept a distance, believing themselves higher in knowledge and culture. Aaron, however, remained calm. He had seen different people before, and to him, respect was always the same, no matter who stood in front of him. Soon, the great royal ship docked. Its silver-blue body shone as if it carried pieces of the sky itself. A long bridge extended and the alien delegation stepped out. Guards in white armor marched first, their steps smooth and perfectly in rhythm. Behind them came nobles in flowing robes, and at last Princess Leora appeared. She was tall, her face soft yet strong, her eyes bright like the stars beyond the glass walls. Her robe was made of light fabric that seemed to move like water. The humans around fell silent, struck by her presence. Aaron stepped forward as the lead guide, standing straight but not stiff. His eyes met hers only for a moment, but in that moment, something strange happened. Leora stopped. She looked at him more closely. Her guards noticed her pause and turned, but she lifted her hand, signaling she was fine. Her gaze did not move away from Aaron's face. A memory rose in her mind. A night long ago, when she was just a child, her ship had been attacked. Flames burned around her, alarms screamed, and her small escape pod drifted in the dark. She remembered crying, thinking no one would come. Then, through the black space, a small craft appeared. A human soldier had opened the hatch and pulled her to safety. His face was young, marked with courage and kindness. She had never forgotten those eyes. She had never told anyone his true face, because no one believed her when she said a human had saved her. They told her it was a dream of fear. They told her humans could not be that brave. But now, here in front of her was the same face. Older, yes, but the same calm strength, the same eyes she had trusted long ago. Her heart began to beat faster. She took a slow breath, keeping her expression steady. None of her advisors noticed the storm of memory in her mind. They saw only their princess walking forward with dignity. But in her heart she knew the truth. This human, Aaron, was the one who had once saved her life. Aaron did not recognize her. To him, she was only a guest, a royal to be treated with care. He bowed slightly, offering words of welcome. His voice was steady, respectful. He did not notice her long gaze, or the way her eyes softened when she looked at him. The group moved forward, and Aaron walked beside them, explaining the way to the royal quarters prepared for them. His words were simple, clear, without showing pride. He pointed out the safety systems, the halls, and the viewports where stars could be seen. Leora listened, but her thoughts were far away. Inside her mind, two feelings battled. One was joy because she had found her savior again. The other was doubt because she did not know if she should speak of it. If she told her advisors, they would laugh at her again, or worse, grow angry that a human had such a role in her past. Yet her heart told her this was real. As they reached the quarters, Aaron stood back as the alien nobles entered. Leora paused at the door. For one moment, she turned her head and looked at him again. He stood in the light of the hall, simple, unshaken, almost unaware of the weight he carried in her memory. That night, the station lights dimmed to rest mode. Leora sat alone in her chamber, staring out of the wide glass at the endless stars. She whispered to herself, remembering the small human ship, the strong arms pulling her to safety, the steady voice telling her she would live. Her people had dismissed it as a dream. But dreams do not stand before you years later in flesh and blood, Aaron. On the other side of the station, sat with his fellow officers. He spoke little, listening to the others discuss their feelings about the alien visitors. Some were impressed, some felt nervous, some even bitter. Aaron only said they were guests and should be treated with respect. When asked what he thought of the princess, he only said she seemed calm and kind. Then he grew quiet again. Neither of them could sleep easily that night. One held the memory of a secret truth. The other walked unknowingly with the weight of a past that was about to return. The first meeting was over. But in that moment when the princess saw the human's face, destiny had already changed its path. Both their lives and the lives of many were about to be woven into one story that would shape the bond between their peoples. The station's cycle moved slowly into the next day. Bright lights filled the halls again, and voices of travelers echoed through the metal passages. Humans walked side by side with aliens from many worlds. Some wore simple trade clothes, others wore robes of authority. The smell of machines mixed with the scent of alien flowers that vendors sold in the main market in her private chamber. Princess Leora woke early. She had slept little, her mind restless. She had spent most of the night remembering the night from her childhood. She saw again the fire, the falling ship, and the human who had appeared from the black void like a guardian. She had told herself for years that it was only memory shaped by fear, but now she knew the truth. The face of the young officer Aaron was the same. His eyes carried the same calm fire she had trusted long ago. She stood before her, mirror of shining glass, and looked at her reflection. She was no longer a child in danger. She was a princess of her people, carrying the pride of her house. Yet inside her heart, she felt like the same girl who had once reached out her hand to a stranger, who saved her. Her guard captain entered and bowed. He reminded her that the first talks between humans and the Chiron nobles would begin soon. She nodded but spoke little. Her thoughts were still with Aaron. She wondered if he remembered her. Perhaps he had saved many and forgotten her small face among them. Perhaps to him, she was only one of many rescues. That thought made her heart heavy, but also gave her courage. She decided she would watch him closely. Across the station, Aaron prepared his uniform with calm hands. His fellow officers joked and spoke of the alien delegation, but he only listened. He remembered the way the princess had looked at him yesterday. Her eyes had been sharp, filled with something more than simple interest. He did not understand why, but he felt her gaze lingered too long. He put the thought aside, telling himself not to let imagination disturb his duty. When the meeting began, the great hall of the station was filled with banners and symbols. Human leaders sat at one side of the table, alien nobles at the other. Princess Leora sat in the center of her group, her robe flowing like silver water. Aaron stood near the wall, part of the human guard, quiet and watchful. The talks began politely, but soon became heavy. Some of the alien nobles spoke with pride, reminding the humans of how young their starfleet was compared to the Chiron Empire. They spoke of culture and knowledge as if humans had little to offer. The human leaders answered calmly, speaking of trade, trust, and the value of cooperation. Leora listened in silence, but her eyes often moved to where Aaron stood. She saw the way he did not flinch at the sharp words from her nobles. He stood firm, his face calm, as if their insults could not move him. She thought of the child she had been and how the same calm presence had guided her out of fear. She felt her chest tighten with quiet pride. At one point, the Chiron noble raised his voice and called humans simple and unready for true power. Murmurs filled the hall. Before the human leader could respond, Leora spoke. Her voice was clear, carrying across the room. She said that wisdom was not measured by the years of an empire, but by the choices of individuals. Her words surprised even her own people. The hall grew quiet. The noble bowed his head and did not speak further. The humans looked at Leora with gratitude, but she only turned her head slightly, her gaze resting on Aaron for a brief moment. Only he noticed the warmth in her eyes. After the talks ended for the day, the guests moved to the grand hall of gathering. Food from both worlds was shared. Strange fruits that glowed softly sat beside simple bread and stew. Laughter filled the room, though under it lay the tension of two different peoples trying to understand each other. Aaron stood near the entrance. Watching, he saw Leora walking among the guests, speaking kindly, smiling at both human and alien. She carried herself with grace, but her eyes seemed to search for something. At last they found him. She walked toward him, her guard stepping back at her signal. When she stood before him, he bowed. She asked softly if he would walk with her. He agreed, and together they moved out into the quieter passage of the station. For a while they walked in silence. The stars shone through the glass wall beside them. Then Leora asked him about his life. She asked why he had joined the human fleet, why he carried himself with such calm. He answered simply. He said he joined because he wished to help where he could, and that fear was natural but must never control action. His words were not dressed in pride or poetry, but they struck her heart. They were the same kind of words the young soldier had spoken long ago when she was rescued. She wanted to ask him directly if he remembered saving her, but her courage failed at that moment. Instead, she only said that his words reminded her of something precious. He looked at her with gentle confusion, but did not press her further. Later that night, when she returned to her chamber, she sat by the glass window again. She whispered to herself that she must be certain before she spoke. If she was wrong, she would shame herself and her people. If she was right, then her life had already crossed with his long ago. And fate had brought them together again. Aaron, in his own quarter, thought of the strange walk. He wondered why the princess had chosen to speak with him. He told himself it was only curiosity, yet her eyes had carried something deeper, something almost familiar, though he could not place it. Days passed with more talks and more moments. Leora watched him in silence when he guarded the halls. She saw how he helped a lost alien child find his parents. She saw how he carried a heavy case for an old human worker without being asked. Every action was small, but to her, they shone brighter than any jewel. They reminded her again and again of the night of her rescue. Her advisors noticed her quiet interest in the human officer. Some whispered among themselves, but did not dare question her openly. They thought perhaps she was simply curious about other cultures. None of them guessed the truth. At last, one evening, Leora sat in her room and closed her eyes. She could not hold the truth inside forever. She remembered his face in the flames, his voice in the dark, his hand reaching for hers. She remembered how safe she had felt, though she was surrounded by danger. She knew it was him, but she also knew the moment was not yet right. She needed to wait to choose carefully when to speak. For now, she would hold the secret in her heart, watching, listening, and learning more about the human who had once saved her life. Without ever knowing who she was, the station lights dimmed again, signaling rest. The stars outside burned steady and endless. Inside, two lives carried a hidden thread of fate, pulling them closer with each passing day. One remembered clearly. The other still walked in shadow. But soon, the truth would no longer remain hidden, and both human and alien would face what destiny had tied between them. The station's halls were bright with banners on the third day of the delegation. Humans and Chiron nobles moved through the wide passages, their voices mixing like waves of sound. At first glance, all seemed calm, yet beneath the surface tension was rising. Both sides wanted peace. But pride in history made every word heavy. Princess Leora walked among her advisors with her head held high. She had trained all her life for diplomacy, but now her thoughts were divided. Her mind often drifted to the human officer Aaron, who stood quietly at his post near the hall doors. She had watched him day after day. His movements were calm, his words few, but each act spoke louder than speeches. She remembered how he had helped the lost child, how he had carried the heavy case, how he endured insults from her people without anger. In him, she saw a strength that her people often ignored. The meeting began again with polite greetings. The human leaders presented new ideas for shared trade routes and protection agreements. Some of the Chiron nobles listened, but others crossed their arms and shook their heads. One noble, proud and sharp-tongued, claimed that humans were reaching beyond their place, that their ships were too small and their fleets too new. His words cut the air like a knife. The human side remained calm, though a few faces tightened with anger. Aaron, standing by the wall, did not move. His eyes stayed steady, watching the room. Leora noticed. She remembered being a child in terror, and how this same calm presence had guided her out of the flames. Now she saw him stand against words meant to wound, and she felt her respect grow even stronger. At the end of the day's session, everyone moved to the station's grand gathering hall for food and rest. The air was filled with scents of many dishes, some sweet, some sharp. Music from both cultures played softly. Nobles and officers mixed in uneasy groups, some talking with forced smiles, others avoiding each other. As always, Rin stood at his place near the entrance. He did not seek the company of others, but watched with steady eyes. Leora felt drawn to him again. She excused herself from her nobles and walked across the hall. Her guards followed, but she raised her hand, signaling she wished to speak privately. The guards hesitated, but obeyed. "Officer Aaron," she said softly. He bowed slightly. "Princess, will you walk with me again?" she asked. "As you wish," he answered. Together, they left the noise of the hall and moved into a quieter passage with wide glass walls showing the stars. Their footsteps echoed softly on the metal floor. For a time, neither spoke. Then Leora turned to him. "Do you not feel anger when my people speak with such pride against yours?" she asked. Aaron shook his head. "Words do not change truth. A man or woman is not measured by insult or praise, but by what they do when others need them." Leora looked at him, her eyes bright. "And you believe humans are measured in this way?" "I believe all beings can be measured that way," Aaron said. "But for humans, it is all we have. We are not the oldest. We are not the strongest. We are not the most wise. But we stand together when it matters. That is what gives us our place." His words struck her heart. She felt the memory of his voice from long ago, telling her she would live, telling her not to be afraid. She knew it was the same soul speaking now, though he did not remember her. Before she could answer, alarms suddenly echoed through the halls. Red lights flashed, and the comm station shook with a deep rumble. Voices shouted through the intercom. The gathering hall behind them filled with cries as nobles and leaders rushed to safety. Aaron's hand went to the small weapon at his side. He looked at the princess. "Stay close." Guards ran to surround her. But Leora stayed near Aaron. They moved quickly toward the secure chambers prepared for the royal group. The halls filled with smoke as systems sparked. The ground shook again, this time stronger. Sabotage. That word spread quickly among the officers. Someone had planted charges within the station. The humans rushed to control the fires while securing the aliens. As the group neared a crossing of passages, a section of ceiling collapsed. Metal fell, blocking the way. Several nobles cried out in fear. Leora stumbled, but Aaron caught her arm and steadied her. His calm voice broke through the chaos. "This way," he said. Leading them through another corridor, the smoke grew thicker. Power lights flickered. The sound of running feet and shouting guards filled the air. Yet Aaron moved with steady focus. He guided the group around blocked passages, helped the weak move faster, and lifted fallen debris when others froze in fear. Leora watched him closely, even as she ran. His face was calm, his voice steady, his steps firm. It was the same strength that had pulled her from her burning ship long ago. She felt no fear while near him. She felt only trust. At last they reached a safer hall, where emergency shields held back the fire. Human engineers worked quickly to restore systems. The nobles gathered, shaken, but safe. Aaron checked each one before finally lowering his weapon. Leora stepped closer to him. "You did not hesitate once," she said. "There was no time to hesitate," he answered simply. "But you risked yourself without thought," she said. "If others depend on me, then my safety does not matter," Aaron replied. Her heart stirred again. She wanted to cry out the truth, to tell him she remembered, to tell him he had once saved her the same way. But her voice caught. She looked at him in silence, her eyes shining with unspoken words. The danger slowly came under control. Station guards reported that saboteurs had been captured. The fires were put out and power returned. The leaders declared the day's meetings ended. Everyone was sent to rest. Later in her chamber, Leora sat in the dim light. Her hands trembled as she remembered every step of the escape, every moment of Aaron's calm leadership. She whispered to herself that she could not hide the truth much longer. He was the same human who had once saved her life. She knew it as clearly as she knew her own name. Aaron, in his quarter, sat silently. His fellow officers praised his quick action, but he only nodded. He did not think of himself as a hero. He thought only of doing what was needed. Yet when he closed his eyes, he saw the princess's face. He remembered her gaze, deep and searching, as if she looked not just at him, but into him. Both of them lay awake that night, restless. Leora's heart told her the moment was coming when she must speak. Aaron's mind told him there was something about the princess he could not explain. The bond between them, hidden for years, is now growing stronger with every passing hour. The talks between their peoples would continue. But the true story was already being written in the quiet spaces between words. In the silent strength of a human and the quiet wonder of an alien princess who knew she had found her savior again. The morning after the sabotage, the station was quieter than usual. Guards checked every passage, engineers worked without pause, and both humans and Chiron nobles moved with caution. The air was heavy with suspicion. Everyone wondered who had placed the charges and what their true purpose had been. Some whispered it was an attempt to ruin the talks. Others said it was the work of enemies who did not want peace. Princess Leora walked through the secure corridors with her guards around her. She answered the questions of her advisors, but her thoughts were not with them. Her heart was still filled with the image of Aaron standing in smoke and fire, guiding them to safety. The memory of her childhood and the memory of yesterday had joined together in her mind like two rivers flowing into one. She could no longer doubt it. The human officer was the same one who had saved her life long ago. She knew she could not remain silent much longer. If she did, the truth would die inside her, unspoken. Yet she also knew the weight of her words. Her people had never believed her story. If she declared it now, some might laugh, others might grow angry. Some nobles might see it as weakness to admit that a human had saved her. But her heart told her it was time to speak. In another part of the station, Aaron stood in front of his commanding officer. The officer praised his actions during the sabotage and told him his courage had been noted by the human leaders. Aaron only nodded. He did not see his work as something great. He thought only of the princess. The way she had looked at him during the escape was burned into his mind. Her eyes had held recognition, though he did not know why. When the day's talks began again, the atmosphere was strained. The human leaders spoke of unity and the need to stand together against threats. The Chiron nobles listened, though some remained cold and distant. Princess Leora, however, was not silent. She spoke strongly, reminding her people that humans had protected them during the sabotage, and that courage could be found in all hearts. It's not only in the old empires. Her words surprised her advisors. Some looked at her with pride, others with doubt. But no one interrupted her. Aaron, standing near the wall as always, listened quietly. He felt her words strike him, though he did not know why they seemed meant for him. That evening, after the meeting ended, Leora sent her guards away and asked Aaron to walk with her again. They moved through the quieter passages of the station, where the stars shone clear through the glass walls. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken truth at last. She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Aaron," she said softly. He bowed his head slightly. "Princess." "There is something I must tell you," she said. Her voice trembled slightly, though her eyes were steady. "It is a truth I have carried since I was a child. A truth no one has ever believed. looked at her with calm curiosity. "You may speak freely with me." She took a breath. "When I was young, my ship was attacked. I was placed in an escape pod. I remember the fire, the darkness, the fear. I thought I would die alone. But then a small human craft appeared. A soldier opened the hatch and pulled me to safety. He told me not to fear. He saved me. That soldier's face has stayed in my memory all these years." Aaron's brow furrowed. He did not speak yet. She stepped closer, her voice stronger now. "That face was yours, Aaron. You were the one who saved me." The words hung in the air like a bright flame in the dark. Aaron felt a shock inside him. For a moment, he searched his memory. Then he remembered a mission many years ago when he was very young, a distress signal in the outer sectors, a pod drifting among the wreckage of a burning ship. He remembered opening the hatch, seeing a terrified child with shining eyes. He remembered lifting her into his arms and telling her she would live. His eyes widened. "That was you," he whispered. "Yes," Leora said, her eyes bright. "It was me. I never forgot. No one believed me when I said a human saved me. They told me it was a dream of fear, but I knew. And when I saw your face here, I knew my memory was true." Aaron stood in silence, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. He had never known who the child was. He had never thought that moment would return to him. To him, it had been duty. To her, it had been life. "I only did what anyone would do," Aaron said at last. "No," Leora replied, her voice strong. "You did what few would do. You risked your life for a child you did not know. You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me life. Do not call it simple duty. It was more than that." Aaron lowered his eyes. "I never expected thanks. I never expected to see you again. And yet here we stand," she said softly. "Fate has brought us together once more." For a moment, they stood in silence, the stars shining around them. The bond between them was no longer hidden. It was real, alive, unbreakable. But Leora knew the truth could not remain between them alone. The story had to be told. She asked Aaron if he would allow her to speak of it. He agreed, though he warned her that her people might not accept it. She answered that she no longer cared for their doubt. The truth was the truth, and it had waited too long in silence. The next day, during the gathering, Leora stood before both humans and Chiron nobles. Her voice rang clear in the hall. She told the story of her childhood, of the fire, the escape pod, and the human who had saved her. She told them his name. She pointed to Aaron standing by the wall and declared him her savior. The hall fell silent. The Chiron nobles shifted uncomfortably, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others staring at Aaron with new eyes. The humans sat in shock, surprised that one of their own had carried such a hidden truth. One noble spoke sharply, saying it was impossible that no human could have saved her. But Leora's voice cut through his doubt. She declared that she remembered every detail, that she had trusted him then, and she trusted him now. Her words carried the strength of a princess who would not be silenced. The human leaders looked at Aaron with respect. Though he bowed his head humbly, he did not feel like a hero. He felt only the weight of fate pressing upon him. That night, the story spread quietly through the station. Some doubted, others believed. But one thing was certain. The bond between the princess and the human officer had changed everything. The talks would never be the same again. In her chamber, Leora stood by the glass window, watching the stars. She felt lighter than she had in years. She had finally spoken the truth. She had honored the man who had saved her life. Aaron sat alone in his quarters, deep in thought. He had never asked for recognition. He had never asked for reward. Yet he felt a quiet peace, knowing that the child he had saved had grown into the strong princess who now carried herself with honor. Both of them knew the days ahead would not be easy, but they also knew that together they had already begun to change the path of their peoples. The truth had been revealed, and it would echo in the hearts of all who heard it. The days following the revelation were tense but hopeful. The station's halls were busy with activity, yet a new energy flowed through them. Humans and Chiron nobles moved differently, their eyes no longer carrying only judgment or suspicion. They carried curiosity, respect, and a quiet anticipation. The story of Princess Leora and Aaron had spread throughout the station. Some were amazed that a human had once saved a princess's life. Others were reflective, questioning the old beliefs that humans were weak or unworthy of trust. Princess Leora awoke early, as she had done each day since her arrival. But now her heart was lighter. The truth had been spoken, and the weight of years was lifted from her shoulders. She dressed simply, choosing a robe of pale silver that shimmered in the morning light. She glanced at the stars outside her window and smiled. They had always guided her. Now they seemed to shine even brighter. She walked to the main hall where the human officers gathered. Aaron was already there, inspecting the station's systems after the recent sabotage. When he saw her, he straightened slightly, offering a small bow. She returned the gesture with a gentle nod. The memory of their conversation, of the moment of recognition, was still fresh. It had changed everything between them. "Good morning, Princess," Aaron said. "Good morning, Aaron," she replied. "I hope the station is running smoothly after yesterday's events." "Mostly," he said. "The engineers are making sure everything is safe. We will be ready for any further challenges." She watched him closely. There was a quiet strength in the way he spoke, a calm certainty that reminded her of the human who had saved her all those years ago. She felt a swell of gratitude and admiration. The day began with renewed discussions between humans and Chiron nobles. The atmosphere was different now. The revelation had broken down some walls of prejudice. Some nobles still looked doubtful, but many listened with attention, realizing that a human could indeed show courage and wisdom. During the discussions, a new threat was discovered. A small fleet of raiders hostile to both humans and Chiron was approaching the station. The alarms sounded, and a sense of urgency filled the air. Humans and aliens alike rushed to prepare defenses. Aaron stood at the command post, coordinating the human response. His calm voice directed the officers, assigning tasks with clear authority. Leora joined him, her presence a quiet support. She did not need to give orders. Her mere presence inspired confidence among the Chiron nobles. The raiders arrived, sleek ships moving fast through the darkness of space. Their weapons glowed with bright energy. The station shuddered as the first shots struck. Alarms blared. Civilians were rushed to safe zones. Aaron acted without hesitation. He guided the human defense teams, helping them take positions and protect the station's critical systems. Leora stood beside him, coordinating with the Chiron guards, her voice firm yet calm. Together, they moved through the chaos, a steady center in the storm. At one point, a raider ship broke through the outer defenses and headed toward a docking bay filled with civilians. Aaron did not pause. He grabbed a small transport shuttle and flew directly to intercept the ship. Leora followed in a Chiron escort craft, her eyes never leaving him. The battle was fierce but brief. Aaron used his knowledge of human and alien technology to outmaneuver the raider. With precision and courage, he forced the enemy ship to retreat. The civilians were safe, and the station remained secure. When he returned to the station, Leora met him at the airlock. "You were incredible," she said. "You saved many lives today." Aaron shook his head. "I only did what was necessary. Anyone would do the same if they could," she said softly. "Not everyone could. You have always acted with bravery, even when no one was watching. I know because I have seen it twice now. Once, when I was a child, and now again." Her words touched him deeply. For a moment, neither spoke. The station around them was alive with movement, yet their small corner seemed still, holding a truth that went beyond duty or titles. In the following days, the Chiron nobles began to speak differently of humans. Some openly praised Aaron, recognizing the courage and wisdom that humans could show. Others were hesitant, but even they could not deny the facts. Slowly, respect grew. Alliances that had seemed impossible began to form. Trade discussions became more cooperative. Shared defense plans were drafted. The humans were no longer considered weak or unworthy. Princess Leora and Aaron spent much of their time together, walking through the station, observing the repairs, and speaking quietly about the events that had brought them to this point. She told him more about her childhood, about the fears and hopes she had carried alone. He listened with patience, never interrupting, always present. One evening, they stood together by the observation deck, watching the stars stretch endlessly before them. Leora spoke softly. "I have never forgotten that night. You were my hope when I had none. You gave me a chance to live and to grow into the person I am today. I can never repay you for that." Aaron looked at her and shook his head. "You do not need to repay me. You are alive, and you have become a strong, wise princess. That is enough. But you deserve more," she said. "You have shown the strength of your people, the courage that humans carry in their hearts. I want the world to know. I want them to see what I have always known." Together, they worked to strengthen the bond between humans and Chiron. Leora spoke to her advisors, insisting that humans be treated as equals. Aaron trained and led human officers, demonstrating both skill and humility. Their actions became a model for cooperation. The final days of the visit arrived. The station had been repaired, the fleet had been defended, and trust had grown. The human and Chiron leaders met one last time to sign agreements of alliance, trade, and mutual protection. During the ceremony, Leora stood before the gathered crowd. She held Aaron's hand for a moment, a simple gesture of gratitude and recognition. Her voice carried across the hall. She spoke of the night she had been saved, of the human whose courage had changed her life. She named him openly, praising not just his actions, but the strength of humanity he represented. The humans rose in applause. The Chiron nobles, some surprised, some hesitant, clapped with growing respect. The story of bravery, trust, and courage spread quickly, uniting to peoples who had once doubted each other. After the ceremony, Leora and Aaron walked together one last time through the quiet halls of the station. The stars shone outside like silver lanterns. She looked at him with deep gratitude. "You have given me more than life," she said. "You have given my people a chance to see the truth. Humanity's light is stronger than anyone imagined." Aaron smiled gently. "And you have given me hope. You have shown me that one life can touch another, and that the courage of a single person can change many." They paused, watching the stars. The bond between them had grown beyond words, beyond duty, beyond even recognition. It was a connection of trust, courage, and a shared destiny. As the human fleet prepared to return home, and the Chiron ship prepared to leave the station, both sides knew something had changed. The story of one human and one princess had inspired many. Respect, trust, and admiration now bridged the gap between worlds. Princess Leora looked at Aaron one last time before boarding her ship. "Thank you," she said simply, "for saving me and for showing the truth of your people." Aaron bowed his head. "It was my honor. Always." The ships parted, moving through the stars in opposite directions. Yet the connection between human and princess, between two lives intertwined by courage and fate, would remain. Their story would be told for generations, a story of bravery, trust, and the light of humanity that shines even in the darkest moments. And so, a single act of courage, remembered and honored, had changed not only one life, but the hearts of many. The human who had once saved a child princess had shown the strength, wisdom, and hope that humanity carries, leaving a legacy that would last across stars and worlds. The station settled into quiet again, but a new era had begun. An era of respect, understanding, and unity. Born from the courage of one human and the gratitude of one princess who never forgot the life he had given her.